Hello and welcome to Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik podcast. I'm your host, Ed Charbeneau, and with me is my co-host, John Bristowe. It's our news show. We talk about things that are relevant to you software developers like us.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this looks like an interesting article, and I'll comment after you give your take on it, John. I've actually
Sure.
written something similar to this, but not on Docker, but something else.
Right.
So go ahead.
Okay. So Docker, as most folks should know, it's basically they invented the concept of containerized applications, sites, deployments, etc. They basically espouse this notion of containers, which are basically some people make reference to like VMs and stuff when they talk about containers. It's sort of akin to that, except that they are sharing resources of the host platform as part of that experience. And as part of the common scenario you see with Docker is for hosting. So in a typical CI/CD space, you'll see it stand up some kind of server infrastructure to isolate and host the application within which you are testing. Now, there are a variety of other ways in which you can use Docker, and this is an article written by Matt Rickard, who talks about some of the things that you can do. We actually do this at Octopus. We actually do this to actually provide a CLI container for folks who want to run our CLI in a containerized environment, which is nice because it's self-contained. There are other ways in which you can do this. You can use it as a compiler. You can use it as a Git repository. You can have it as a cross-compatibility layer for cross builds, etc. Task runner. There's a whole bunch of different ways in which you can leverage Docker. One of the more interesting scenarios is there's a technology called Dagger, which we've talked about, which is this idea of taking your CI/CD pipelines and hosting them in the same technology that is based around Docker, which is called BuildKit, which is the way in which you can actually create these environments. And Dagger is all about, because one of the problems you have is if you host a workflow on say GitHub, you can't take it down to your local environment without a lot of magic. Like there's tools to let you do that, but they're not portable. You can't take a workflow written in YAML that targets, say, for example, GitHub, and then just put it onto GitLab or onto CircleCI or whatever, and it just runs. So Dagger is a similar approach to this, where they provide a virtualized, for lack of a better term, Dockerized version of your workflow. So Docker has some really, really interesting scenarios specifically around developer workflow, and this article goes into some of those ways in which you can use it.
Nice. Yeah, this reminds me a little bit of an article I wrote a long time ago. I don't think it's published anymore. It's for I did it for a company that doesn't exist now. But I was working with virtual machines, and I wrote an article about alternate uses for virtual machines.
Right.
And there's quite a few cool things that you can do with VMs that aren't just having, quote, a virtual machine. One of those things was like backing up your environment. Like you're getting a brand new machine, you're phasing out your old one, instead of like keeping around that old laptop to boot up. Like in the worst case scenario, like you left something on it that didn't get backed up.
Right.
Maybe you got a build of some old thing you never thought you'd have to go touch again. Some old project rears its ugly head and you have to go in and do some maintenance on it, and that sort of thing. This way you don't have to like set up all of your like dev tools and everything. Like maybe you got some old version of Visual Studio on there that you haven't used in 3 years, that sort of thing. You just make and make a P2V or physical to virtual copy of it and keep that as a backup. Don't just back up the data, just back up an image of that machine. Put that in your cloud storage somewhere. So if you see like the rainy day come, you need to go boot that thing back up. You don't have to reach for some old hardware that may or may not work when you try to boot it up. Or just, you have the source code, but you don't have all the tools that you used to use to actually run the app the way it was run in dev mode. So
Right.
that was something I used to do. That was one of the alternative uses. The other one was there's a really cool feature that you can utilize from several of the VM softwares that are out there, but I think Virtual Machine or not virtual machine. What's the freebie one that Oracle bought? VirtualBox. That was one of them that I'd use frequently because it was free. But you could do a seamless integration where you could run a VM in the background, but pop Windows out of that VM on your desktop.
Yeah,
Have you
yeah.
ever seen that? It's like
Oh, yeah.
seamless mode or whatever it's called.
Yep.
So that's like really cool. We had a research team. They were researching some stuff that required them to go into spaces that were known for viruses. And they didn't want to get viruses on their machine. So what I did is I went on their machine and I set up a real lightweight VM running Ubuntu. And the only app they could access was the browser from that virtual machine. And there was actually like an icon on their desktop they could click on and it would open a browser, and they were none the wiser that it was actually running in a VM somewhere.
Sure.
So they had like this isolated browser that couldn't touch their system resources. Plus, it was running in Ubuntu, not Windows, so it wasn't susceptible to the same viruses and things. And they were able to just go do their research without any of their machine getting infected with stuff. And that was pretty.
Yeah,
cool.
there's so many ways to do virtualization these days, but yeah, I mean, lots and lots of stuff. So I mean, the world is now containerized. But the premise is exactly the same. You're trying to isolate. You're trying to establish isolation boundaries, and containers are a great way to do that. And you can leverage containers really effectively and in really smart ways by using some of the techniques that are talked about in this article.
I love when people find alternative uses for things that we are already using. Cool stuff. So, 6 strategic ways to level up your CI/CD pipeline. What's this guy about?
Yes.
John?
So this is an article written by Damien Brady. He's a friend. He works at GitHub, and he talks about some of the things that you can do to improve your CI/CD pipeline. So for those who are unaware, a CI/CD pipeline is basically what happens to your code. What are the steps and processes that are involved in your code, related to your code, not directly to your code, but related to your code when you do a commit, a pull request, a merge, et cetera, et cetera. These are supplemental processes that can occur as part of what we call a pipeline, which is basically, you ever see a Bugs Bunny cartoon? They put the thing in one side of the machine, it goes through the Acme machine, then out the end spits out this thing. Typically, it would be Bugs Bunny's villain. He would pop in this one side of the machine, and out at the end, he would be all wrapped up in wire or something. Anyways, a pipeline is the same sort of idea. And what goes in is your code, and what comes out are potentially artifacts or side effects, etc. And they're positive, basically. So some of the things that Damien talks about in this article is basically, make sure that you're testing for not just unit tests, but make sure you're testing for other things as well, like performance testing, device compatibility, accessibility testing. These are things that you can automate to a large extent today, and you can actually just pick up and run with. And there are a variety of environments that support these things. And so you can actually run these tests, run them well, and just be assured that when they complete and they pass, you can then, say, yes, it did. The side benefit of that is you can keep your branches really clean, because you can actually put in what are called static checks that say you will not accept a merge, or you will not allow to merge a pull request until you actually pass all these tests. And one of them could be a performance test. Number 2, incorporate, what did he say? That's the exact title. It's like incorporate automated security testing. Yeah, this is part of it. So there's a variety of tools that allow you to do that. There's Dependabot from GitHub. Sneak has a bunch of security, what we call SecOps tooling, code scanning for things like secrets. Like sometimes you'll put in an API key in your code and you forget to take it out of your test code, and then you check it in and you're like, oops. Yeah. So GitHub will detect that. GitHub will actually automatically detect that and auto delete it. I hate to say it, but I did this one time years ago, and actually last year, I think, and GitHub just auto deleted the commit, and it auto detect, hey, there's a GitHub pat in your code, delete. and it didn't even commit it. So it was great.
That's nice.
So there's all kinds
That
of
can cost
things
money if it's the
yeah.
the right kind of keys for the right
access
thing.
keys. Yeah. Like AWS, for example, or Azure. Yeah, big time. So these sorts of tooling you can wire up really easily, and they're repeatable, they're robust, and they're reliable. So they'll run all the time every time you have this. So make sure you put this as part of your CI/CD pipeline. So that's number 2. Number 3,
Thindle commented on chat here. He's
yeah.
He didn't do this, so he didn't need to spend 6 hours resetting keys and removing them from files.
Yes.
The problem is like there are also bots out there that are not friendly that are running and will catch these keys very quickly. So I'm sure the GitHub Advanced Security stuff is catching it faster now.
Oh yeah, and in fact, it's actually pluggable.
Like not too long ago, back in the day either. Like
yes.
I mean, you're talking about just a couple of years ago. If you accidentally pushed your keys, I mean, they were snatched up darn near in an instant.
Yes.
And you had no time to react. Like if you just so much as git push and went, oh shoot, it's too late already.
Yes. So that's number 2. So far so good. Number 3, if we just scroll down, I forget what else he says. Oh, build a phased testing strategy. So this is more about, try and test early for the things that are obvious. Like a compile should be probably, if it's not too long, probably should be one of your first steps. But then there's other sort of other tests that you can write, like integration tests that will go ahead and run that may take a while. Leave those for later on in the pipeline, because you don't want to run E2E tests and then do it doesn't make weird. This is a bad example, but unit tests after E2E tests doesn't make sense. So make sure you have a phased testing approach. And also those phased testing approaches may only apply to scenarios where it makes sense. Like if you're merging to main, there may be different tests that you may want to run before you actually commit those changes. Investing in blue-green deployments. This is really good for versioning. So blue-green deployments is basically where you have 2 or more versions of an application out in production, and you want to slowly migrate users from one version over to the next. So blue to green. And this is a way in which you can actually manage your pipeline. And so you can actually do this. You can actually have an easier rollout by investing in this type of strategy when pushing updates. And they're great when you can actually have these as interchangeable environments, and you can switch one to the other. And as Damien rightly points out, a great strategy for leveraging this is through Kubernetes, which is basically a hosting environment for your containers. And there's a breakdown structure in which Kubernetes actually breaks this down, but basically you can establish what are called pods, and those pods are running, and then you can get health checks on those, and you can have your old V1 and then V2 and then blue-green deployed to that, and then you can easily get a gradual migration over. So that's another thing. So that's number 4.
So John, how do I make live edits to production doing something like this?
That's right. That's right.
Kidding,
I don't know if you want to do that, but there you go.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. You can't.
Yeah.
When you do something like that.
Adopt infrastructure as code for greater flexibility. So infrastructure as code is this notion that basically you're going to stand up infrastructure like web servers, databases. You're going to configure them with state, etc. And you're going to do that. You can do that typically through scripts, which is what people historically have done. But what's more popular these days is you describe your intent in state or in configuration as code. So it can be versioned, it can be checked into GitHub, and there's a variety of tools that do this. Terraform comes to mind immediately. Terraform is this idea that you can actually write your desired state in what's called HCL, or HashiCorp configuration language. It's a way of expressing what you would like your Azure website to look like, what you would like your AWS Lambda to be configured with, etc. Set those things up and utilize that as part of a build process. So you can stand up these ephemeral environments, for example, test, then tear it all down. The nice thing about these tools with infrastructure as code is that it's very, very easy to, it's also a danger, but it's very, very easy to stand these things up, do your test, and then tear it all down. And I say that you got to be careful because it's aptly named. Tools like Terraform, Ansible, etc. And Pulumi. They're aptly named because they actually can tear things up and tear them down very quickly. So you got to be careful. Create checkpoints for automated roadblocks. This one's a bit of an obvious one, but basically, you may sometimes have to roll back bad releases. This is a nature of software development. There's another strategy to this, which is the train always moves forward. So if you do a bad release, you just like pave over top of it with a new release. But being able to do automated rollbacks is something that you can and should consider as part of a pipeline process, so that you can actually go back to the previous version if a mistake or exploit is discovered in the wild. So these and other ways in which you can tackle these things are listed in this, and I thought Damien did a great job of articulating them in this blog.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. New recipes for third-party cookies.
Yeah, so this is a blog post from a friend of ours, Eric Lawrence, creator of Fiddler. This is his blog, text/plain. And so third-party cookies are those cookies that you get when you visit a website, and they come from obviously a non-origin domain. These come for a variety of reasons, and historically you'd think of things like DoubleClick and others. And what they do is they basically enable, well, they're there by necessity because people set it up as such, and websites have to facilitate this. But recently changes have been made by various browser vendors, including Chrome and Edge. Sorry, that will never get old. Firefox, etc. And what they've done is they've changed the default standard in which they accept these. So Eric goes into the details around the histrionics of this. He also talks a little bit about what's changed. So in 2020, we changed the same origin, or same site rather, property to lax from none, which basically does a little bit more restrictive policies. But then what's interesting is Eric actually goes, you would think that Eric would basically talk a little bit about, never accept them. But he's like, no, these are sometimes the reality. So he actually goes into techniques to actually facilitate third-party data and the notion of third-party cookies through a variety of other techniques. And so there are ways in which you can do this. So these are the restrictions, but talks a little bit about things like, chips, which is cookies having independent partition state. There's also this storage API. There's a whole bunch of different ways in which you can actually utilize some of these things effectively without having to violate cookie policy. So you would think that everyone would be against them, but no, there's obvious reasons why you want third-party cookies support. And so Eric goes into details about how to support them, given the context of privacy relative to browsers these days.
Very interesting. This is above my pay grade.
No, it's not. It's
been a while since I've dealt with cookies directly.
Oh, come on. Eric's a grid writer. He knows how to articulate these very clearly.
Yep. We've got some things that have been released lately. I've got a couple to mention. You've got Go 1.19 was released.
Yes. Yeah, so the Go team ships a new release of Go every 6 months. That's been generally the case. And so what they typically do is they have to start after a major release, not a major, but you know what I mean, like not in December terms, but after a release, they basically open it up and they say, all right, have at it. Let's see what you got, And so the Go team has been iterating on this for the past 6 months, and they put out a release of the new Go tooling and runtime, etc. So Go 118 was a massive change. It introduced features like generics and fuzzing and workspaces, etc. And Go 119 isn't on the same order of that, but it is a pretty reasonable release by its own account. So Go 119 adds a whole bunch of things. It does improvements around docs. So docs are this notorious thing in Go because you have to structure them a certain way. So they're adding support for things like links and lists, and it will format it accordingly. The memory model now has some improvements around how you use certain structures, how you allocate and deallocate memory. There's improvements around how we, utilize garbage collection, etc. Most importantly, obviously, there's been a lot of bug fixes. So near in the second paragraph there, they talk about how they've made performance improvements around generics, etc. So lots and lots of stuff to consider. Not a massive update like 118 was, but 119 is great. I've been using it for the past few hours here, and we use Go internally at Octopus, and so lots of stuff worth noting. And to get it is really easy. You can either get it via Brew, or you can just download it, install through Visual Studio Code if you're using Visual Studio Code or using Goland, etc. It's very easy to grab.
We talk about Rust every now and then.
Yep.
And I saw this come across the wire. So IntelliJ, it's a product by JetBrains.
JetBrains.
Yeah, they have updated the Rust support for the last release of IntelliJ. So there's some new stuff in IntelliJ Rust in this release.
Yes.
So if you're a Rust developer, there is a big improvement here over the latest edition, where we've got improved changes to config files, toolchain scripts, performance improvements, type inference improvements, compiler error detection, all sorts of things. It looks like a pretty big release for them with the Rust tooling for IntelliJ. Cool. This goes on and on and on. I mean, this is a big release for them. So if you're dabbling with Rust or getting into it, I'd suggest getting IntelliJ for Rust and checking that out. The folks at JetBrains, they make fantastic IDEs.
Yeah, we use Goland, which is from JetBrains. And it's funny, on our team, we look at Go all the time, but we're considering Rust ourselves. We like Rust, and Rust has its place. So does Go. These are languages that are really useful in certain scenarios, and I want to dabble a little bit more in Rust. But yeah, it's great to see that the tooling's coming along as well.
Yeah, I need to take this out for a spin and see if I can build some WebAssembly code with Rust and then like interop into it from Blazor. It'd be an interesting mashup.
Yeah,
the tools are challenge pretty good now.
The challenges I've heard with, and I haven't got a lot of experience with this, but the challenges I've heard with Rust is obviously because it's a secure runtime environment, etc. And there's a programmatic style, and for a variety of reasons, type safety, etc. Like it's huge on type safety. You can't use. They have to have their own libraries packages called cargo
crates.
And crates. Sorry, my terms are all mixed up. And you have to utilize those as part of that. It takes you kicking and screaming into a very type safe world, but this is part of the reason why a lot of software developers are going. It's because it's very secure. A lot of people are building the secure parts of their applications in Rust and saying, okay, it's hard to build, but once it's built, it's pretty rock solid. Like the compiler will complain all the time, sort of thing. Yeah. So, but what's interesting about this is you're seeing different companies take an approach where they're using Rust for very specific things that they want to make sure is rock solid.
We're going to dive into some of the more fun things that I like to dabble with, John. They may not be your favorite thing, but they're my favorite thing. So right. I play Half-Life Alyx. It's one of my favorite VR games that's out there. And they've opened, like Valve has always been good at this. They opened up Half-Life Alyx to modders early on. So there's been a ton of mods. This is just yet another one. And somebody built like kind of like a wave defense type of a thing. Those games where you just keep getting wave after wave after wave of enemies. It never really ends. You just keep kind of fighting your way through it. This looks like a really good one, where you're in City 17 and then the waves of enemies just start hoarding at you and you got to try to keep escaping each wave. I thought that looked like a lot of fun. Definitely going to try that one out myself. The combat system in VR for Half-Life Alyx is really good and pretty unique for VR, in my opinion. So they've done a lot of the interactions with the weaponry and all of that really, really good, to where you're physically having to reload your ammo in your gun. And like that is one of the points in the game where you start to actually feel the stress of the game, right? It's not your typical shooter. It's like the number of enemies is like the stress point. You're like, oh, how am I gonna fight off all these enemies at once? And Half-Life Alyx, it's like it's more realistic. Like you're under fire. Now you've got to actually physically reload your gun. It's not just like pressing a button on your keyboard and watching the animation play out. You're like physically like picking up bullets and putting them in the chamber type of thing. A lot of fun. Definitely looks like something I want to try. I'm going to
All
give
right.
that a shot. A little bit of a lighter note. I know you're going to love this, John. Like, I
Sure.
still haven't quite got to the point where I've reached parity with the flying simulator. Remember the flight simulator?
Yes. Yes.
Where you get to flap your arms like a bird. Haven't quite found that pinnacle of entertainment yet.
I can't believe that didn't take off.
Yeah, nice pun. I like it. I like it. It's tough to swallow.
All right, I think we're done.
You see what I did there?
Yes.
I even included some Monty Python in that one. All right. So this is on the level, but you know, I thought it was cringeworthy, and I'd share it with you, John, because I love hearing your take on these things.
What?
People are begging for jobs at the virtual Kmart, but they're not hiring. So apparently, somebody has gone into, I don't know what system this is, some virtual reality. I guess there's something called VRChat, which is a virtual reality platform, and somebody has gone in and created a digital twin of Kmart. Like we talked about what digital twins are on the show before. Usually they're actually used for something serious. Somebody's gone in and meticulously created a Kmart in virtual reality. And I mean, this thing is supposedly very detailed, like insanely detailed, to where there is music playing over the PAs. You can actually like work the scanners. You could pick up items in the store. I mean, like this thing, they've modeled every
Bud Light
detail. They've gone through and meticulously detailed this thing out and made it interactive. It is absolutely hilarious. Wow. But it's drawing the attention of people. There's a Discord with 3,000 people that occasionally role play working here. There's a whole thread on it.
I love it.
Yeah. So, you know, we can't get people to actually work here in the US at stores right now for some reason. Like everybody, there's been like a mass migration of jobs. Oh, okay. And nobody's working in retail and in fast food right now. It's like a hiring drought. Yet, we're able to get them in virtual Kmarts to work for free.
You know, these are all like high school kids and trying to make each other laugh and all that, you know.
Yeah. So there's, you know, apparently job applications for these stores.
Sure.
And everything. I mean, this is hilarious. There's this big role-playing thing that's being kind of built up around it.
I'd want to be the greeter person, you know, the person who waves hello to everyone coming in. That's the job I'd want.
Welcome to Costco. I love you.
Sure.
If you've seen Idiocracy, you'll know what I'm talking about.
I have not.
You have not? Okay. So you need to, you've got homework, John. You have to watch Idiocracy. If you have any respect for Mike Judge at all, you have to watch Idiocracy. So that's all I'm going to say. On a more serious note, I talked about this last show, but .NET Conf Focus on .NET MAUI is coming soon. So there's some Reactor and community events that are being announced alongside with it. So if you're interested in building cross-platform applications using .NET that run on web, desktop, and mobile, then you might want to check out the .NET Conf Focus event in August, on August 9th. It's a free one-day live stream, and there are events popping up around the event. There's events at the Microsoft Reactor. I guess there's several of these in Redmond. I've actually been to that one. San Francisco. I don't know how to pronounce that. Bengaluru. There's events there as well. There's watch parties in India and all over the place. So you can fill out a form, host your own in-person event as well. I'm sure they send out like some stickers or something like that to you. Oh, yep, it says right there, MAUI stickers for your event.
Nice.
So that's always fun. You get your meetup together and you just watch that event rather than having to host a speaker for that night. So get in there, join the club, check it out, all that good stuff. It should be really interesting. A lot of really great speakers in that Focus event as well. I mean, you've got James Montemagno, Maddie, all sorts of folks that are.
I know Sam speaking, Alyssa speaking.
Oh, really? I didn't even know they were on the list.
Yeah, speakers there. There they go. Alyssa.
There's Alyssa.
And Jeff, Jeremy, Mads,
very cool.
Sam, etc., etc. Very cool.
Awesome. And then DevReach is also coming. And DevReach will be September 11th through the 14th in Boston. So if you're in Boston, you want to come see us live and in person, you can buy tickets. They're about $300. But if you're wanting to view from online, you can attend for free. So you can watch that. All you have to do is register. If you click the big register button here, you'll see that the virtual event is completely free. So just sign up there. You'd also make a charity donation, that sort of thing. I don't remember exactly where the charity's going. I'm sure it's on the website here. I probably should do my homework on that one. But we're giving it to a good cause, I am sure. We've got a little intro for that as well. So I'm going to play that out real quick before we end the show here.
So what is the best way to reach developers?
DevReach, of course.
Yes, DevReach. And we are back September 11th to the 14th, Boston Waterfront. Come and join us. There's going to be the latest in .NET, .NET MAUI, Blazor, Angular, accessibility, so many things.
Hope to see you there.
I like the pixelated icons there. It's very clever.
The branding's great, and the folks are great. We've got a lot of friends that you might recognize from the stream, and we'll be in person, which is going to be awesome. So, we'll have Alyssa Nicole and Layla Porter in studio together. So in person, that is going to be absolutely crazy. We've got some DevReach and Progress alum as well. So we've got Jen Looper's going to be there. Lots of familiar faces. And there's Sam again. He's everywhere these days, talking about MAUI and stuff. So it's going to be a really great event in a really great town. So if you can get there. If you can't, you can always join us online. Anytime you have Layla and Alyssa together, especially Layla with her stray cats, that's always a fun day. I don't know if you caught the stream, John, but we're streaming yesterday. I've got Layla and Alyssa on, and in the middle of firefighting, Alyssa deleting her source code without any way of recovering it. Layla looks up and goes, "There's a cat in my house and I don't own a cat."
Nice.
So the stream just goes completely off the rails as soon as we get started. And it's always entertaining, those guys. So
to be expected, but that's okay. Yeah. That's live Twitch / whatever. So
all we were missing was a kiddie pool. It's Twitch thing. I don't know why, but you got to be in a kiddie pool while you stream these days.
All right.
Yeah, it was a fun show. So we'll have these fun, amazing folks in person as well, teaching a lot of very important things and having a lot of fun. So we hope to see you all there and online.
Cool.
And that is news for this week, John.
Yeah, a little bit of a lighter week, but that's all right.
Mhm.
You know, check out those links and yeah, read more about how to use Docker and third-party cookies, and try and get your hands on Go 119 if you can. Have a play, maybe IntelliJ with Rust. Who knows?
And you know, strap that VR thing to your face and shoot some
No,
zombies.
don't do that.
And
No, please stop doing
go to
that.
Kmart.
Sure.
Just don't get those two things confused.
Yeah.
Don't go to Kmart and shoot zombies in VR. I don't know if that's part of the game or not, but you can definitely go to VR Kmart and work if that's what that's your jam. If you want to
All right.
relive the glory
Get
days of
a case
your,
of Bud
your
Light.
teenage
Perfect.
years.
Yep. Perfect.
The VR space is so weird right now. It's like the Wild West. There's just so many oddities going on.
And that's why I don't visit. Yes.
John's just like, meh.
Get off my lawn. Yes.
Get off my lawn and don't hack my face. We'll see you soon, and I'll be streaming again next week, and I'm sure we have lots of shows lined up as we progress towards DevReach. So we'll see you soon.
Nice. Another last pun. There you go.